まさかとは思うが、そのよそ者、琥珀が連れてきたんじゃあるまいな。
まだわかりません。
いや、そうです、オサ。琥珀ちゃんですよ。ジャスパ、あんたも聞いたでしょ、銀狼から。すぐバレる可愛い方よして。
あのバカ娘。ルリ。
Hello everybody, Megazard X here, and for today I'm going to be reviewing Dr. Stone Episode 8, Stone Road. And if you hadn't already done so, make sure to click that card in the corner to go ahead and watch that Episode 7 review, where I did things a little bit differently, as I actually did a live reaction of the episode that I actually watched, and I actually had the discussion part of the video towards the very end of that. So you can go ahead and watch that first if you hadn't already, and then come back and watch this video though. But for this Dr. Stone Episode 8 review, I'm doing things a little bit differently, as I have a guest on the channel, and his name is Johnny, who I actually know very well off of Twitter. Go ahead and say hello, Johnny.
Hello, guys. How's it going?
And basically, me and him are going to go back and forth, just kind of talking about our general impressions, just discussing the episode as a whole, and we're just going to do some deep diving on in this episode. So go ahead and get relaxed and get comfortable as we go over this recent episode of Dr. Stone.
教えてくれセンク。万能薬の作り方をよ。ルリの病気ぶっ倒してやるぜ。
ルリ姉が治るのならばどんな協力でもするぞ。
おはよう世界グモーニング地上に変えていくオルセイ一歩ずつ道を浮かぶような
Alright, and in this episode 8 review, as Senku, Kohaku, and Krone begin searching for the elements they needed to create the antibiotic, they are aided by another villager named Suika, which Suika, after you watch the episode, basically is the little girl that has the big old watermelon head. For reasons why, I don't know. I don't even know how that girl is able to support a watermelon on her head, but needed more manpower to turn iron sand into iron. The gang needed Suika to gain intel on what the villagers wanted. So finding food to be a common theme of the villagers' wants, Senku manages to use foxtail millet to recreate ramen to win them over. And that's basically the shortest summary you possibly ever can hope to imagine over this episode though. But it wasn't super deep in the plot and it was pretty straightforward. So that's it for basically the plot. Did you want to add anything else to that, Johnny?
I mean, you just summarized it all, so there's not really much I can say to that.
Alright, so that's pretty much it for the episode 8 summary, as quickly as that sounds though. But overall, just our discussion, or just our overall thoughts about the episode as a whole, I definitely say if we were to split this up into comedy, and if we were to split it up into the actual plot itself, or the character development, if we were to tackle the comedy part first, I definitely got to say, man, they went balls to the walls on this one, because man, me and Johnny were actually watching this episode together, and there was a couple of moments where we just busted out laughing, and I was like, man, I just kind of lost my composure. What did you think about that, Johnny?
I mean, they went all out in that part of this episode. There's some parts that are really actually fun.
And I was thinking about, because there was one moment where, okay, yeah, the biggest moment where we were caught off guard was whenever Senku was actually creating that, man, I can't think of the actual term of whatever it was called, but it was basically like basically like a furnace where you're able to apply more oxygen. So it allowed, because, you know, as Senku said earlier in the episode, wood can only burn up to a temperature up to 700 degrees, but they needed to get it hotter than that in order to melt the iron. So they had to create this structure to be able to support a higher temperature when they're trying to burn the iron sand and trying to melt it into actual iron itself. So they were going 90 to nothing, pumping this air like no man's business, pulling some Dragon Ball Z mess over here, going like just going 90 miles an hour, and man, me and Johnny Bow just lost it, man. It was crazy. It was really something else, man.
温になってきたぜ。休んで温度下げんじゃねえぞ。
あと何分続けるんだこれを。
そうだな、ざっくり数十時間。
Okay, so about that scene of them bumping the air into the furnace, it was just funny because you saw their faces. They were making so much strength to put oxygen in there, and their faces were just hilarious, dude. And when they close up on the faces, it's so good that yeah, we actually just busted out laughing. And Senku's eyes on fire were actually a good point of comedy. I like that part a lot.
And that is something interesting to note, because when you go through and look at not just this episode itself, but if you look at all the other episodes, you can just see the level of care that they put into the facial reactions. Like you can't go back and look at one episode and see that same facial reaction when there's a WTF moment and they pull up a different scenario, and it's just a different face every time, and it always catches you off guard. And I always found that personally funny every time I go through the episode though. But it was just little moments like that, or just seeing like the snickering moments, those sweet moments between Kohaku and Senkun himself. So overall, I always think that, you know, the level of comedy that these episodes always do, I always think that it's really good though. But diving into the bigger thing about this episode is the plot itself. And while the plot is not necessarily super deep itself, it's pretty straightforward from the basic elements of what happened in the previous episode, because Kohaku's sister is basically sick, so they have to create an antibiotic. But in order to create the antibiotic, they have to burn some elements to actually create the antibiotic. But that's where the obstacle comes into place, because they're going to need a whole bunch of manpower in order to burn and get that iron sand that they actually scooped out of the water and actually put it into the furnace where they can, you know, use the oxygen and everything else. Because I think it was 5 of them kind of pumping on that pumping into that air casket thing. But the 5 of them alone was not going to be able to get that thing to turn up to near, about 1100 degrees or so. So yeah, that's the whole reason why they're going to have to use one of their friends to be able to get some intel on how they can motivate the people of the town village to actually help out and succeed. And you think normally, you know, just doing this out of compassion, to save that girl from being sick, they should. But as you saw in the previous episode, they're not taking kind to outsiders. So Senkun basically has to instill the people's trust into them. So what do you think about all of this, Johnny?
So like you said, to create an antibiotic, it's not really easily, and they need a lot of ingredients and not a lot of manpower, and they need to do really a lot of stuff. So a point that I think that you should have reinforced more is about Suika, the little girl introduced in this episode. She's a really interesting girl because she always thinks that she can help people. And so she's trying to help Senku, Kohaku, and Chrome in order to be able to help people do something. And I think she's a really good girl that's gonna be a really good character in the future.
Yes, and that is one thing I was going to iterate on, but Johnny happened to beat me to the point on this, though. So at least we're thinking in the same state of mind, though. But Suika is the newest character that we got revealed in this episode, though. And yeah, as Johnny said earlier, I think her character is actually very interesting. And as a matter of fact, you know, she's kind of like that younger little girl that, you know, you'll see out in your neighborhood that always wants to help. You know, it's always like an inspirational, little bright bundle of joy. That's the way I was saying it. Little bright bundle of joy that, you know, this always makes people feel happy, always trying to do their best and just trying to provide support for everybody in the cast. So I think Suika is going to be a nice, interesting character, though. But yeah, it was thanks to her that they were able to gather the intel that they would need it in order to get the manpower from the village people. And one thing that me and Johnny were noticing during this episode was that watermelon though, like she stuck her whole entire body into that watermelon and was basically like just like camping out and like getting intel and stuff. And we're basically saying, hey, this is basically like the Sherlock Holmes 007 of the Stone World, which was actually pretty funny. What do you think about that, Johnny?
Dude, we still saw that she hiding in the watermelon is another really good example of the comedy in this episode. And she being like that funny little girl that always wants to help, hiding in the watermelon, little cliche in the anime industry. I don't know if you get me, but like she does a really good job at being stealthy. That is a true fact.
So yeah, so I think Suiko's overall is pretty interesting though. But basically, as you work your way towards, getting close to the end of the episode, she was basically able to gather all the intel they needed, and they were able to figure out, hey, in order to get to them, the best way to a man's stomach is food. I heard that, quite a bit from a lot of TV shows and everything else. So just in general with people, hey, it's a lot easier to convince somebody to do something or do a particular task for you after their belly has been full. So they figured out, hey, food is going to be one of the best ways to convince the people to help them. So Senku was basically trying to create some food from his modern time. And me and Johnny kind of going back and forth at it, and we were saying, hey, Johnny was thinking, hey, maybe he's trying to form, what were you saying you was trying to form?
I don't quite remember well.
What was it? I think you said something on the lines of, what was it? That anime food.
Oh, it's Shokugeki no Soma, but in the Stone World.
Yeah, you were basically making references to that, and I think you were saying, I was trying to remember the actual name of the food that you were thinking that they were making.
Oh,
it was God.
Curry.
There we go, curry. He was thinking it was curry, but I was looking at all the stuff and they were trying to pull some stuff with wheat and stuff. So I was like, no, was it something with stew? But it actually turned out to be a pot of nothing better than ramen. I was like, oh goodness. So they actually tried to make some ramen back in the Stone World age. Now, I don't know how, this is that shonen anime stuff, because there would have been no way on this green earth I would have been able to think and say, hey, you know what, I want a good bowl of ramen. Let's go ahead and cut up this plant right here. Let's go ahead, chop it up, sort it out through the water, grind it up, and try to make some artificial noodles, because I imagine that's probably a really hard and difficult process to be able to go through and do all of this. And I wouldn't think it would be like one of the easiest things in the world though, but knowing Senku, he somehow managed to do it. And everybody else, Kohaku, as well as Chrome and everybody else, they thought the noodles were really good, but Senku tries a little bit, and obviously it tastes bad to him because he's used to the modern day stuff. But compared to what the people growing up in the Stone World were having, it was actually really good to them. So it was just kind of funny to kind of see that reaction though. But what did you think about that, Johnny?
Well, like you said before, like I made that reference to curry when they were starting to cook. I also thought of a couple of other things like rice, for example. But one thing I never expected was noodles or ramen in the Stone World. That was a complete shock to me. Like, ramen looks like such a sophisticated meal. Not sophisticated, but like seems like a meal that you have to put a lot of effort into. And they just made it in the Stone World. So yeah, I was pretty surprised. And then when Senku tasted it and saw it tasted so bad, it was also pretty funny.
Yeah, because it's a huge general process over trying to create noodles. And just knowing that that's just basically straight carbohydrates, we're going a little chemistry, kind of little, science lesson. Well, I guess this, Dr. Stone episodes, that's just nothing but science lessons though. Well, basically noodles being straight carbohydrates themselves, yeah, I imagine it's not an easy process. And as a matter of fact, they don't have like machinery nowadays, because if you go and look on YouTube, or you were to go look on Google and see how noodles are formed, they got these like big old revolving machines that actually like turn those noodles. So the matter of fact that they were able to do this in this episode was actually kind of pretty cool and pretty clever though. But moving on from the noodle making process, then we got towards the very tail end of the episode, and basically they rolled that stall right in front of the bridge that led to the little town that they had. And already it started to catch people off guard. They started to kind of smelling like, oh man, what is all of that? Man, that actually smells really good. And essentially, that's almost exactly where we ended the episode, and there wasn't too much more to that. Anything else you wanted to add to this, Johnny?
So I think we reviewed pretty much most of the episode, but something I think we forgot to talk about is when they were gathering the sand iron, that talk that they had about Kohaku's sister. Because why did Chrome and Kohaku know so much about Dragon Quest and Monster Hunter? That were games that were supposedly from our time and not from that stone world. So that was a pretty interesting thing we got to see there.
Yeah, and that is something interesting because technically they have been making these. I know from Dragon Quest, they've been referring Dragon Quest a whole lot more than I think Monster Hunter. I can't remember exactly, but I want to say this is the first time I believe I saw them say Monster Hunter in here, but I know they've been saying multiple times for Dragon Quest. And when they pop those little menu boards up and say, you acquired this, or you found this, or you accomplished that, or you made this, I think those are just like small little references to Dragon Quest. And man, a quick side note right now, I'm playing Dragon Quest 11S, so I was playing the demo of it for the Switch. So the more and more I started to play that game, the more and more I can make these little tad bit of references and be able to say, oh, okay, this is where that came from though. But that side note aside, it's just nice little references I like within the episode of how they can manage to keep some of the modern stuff and apply it back into the stone world, which is literally nothing but bare bones. But yeah, is there anything else you wanted to add on to this for this first little part of the episode when they were trying to create that iron?
What I was trying to get over here was not really the references to Dragon Quest and Monster Hunter, but the fact that Kohaku's sister knows about. That is what I think that is what disturbed me a little bit, because how does she know about those things? Like, wasn't she supposed to be a girl from the Stone Age?
Now I'm starting to understand the angle and this is something deeper that I usually would hit on like the last little part of my reviews though. But that is something interesting because the matter of fact that Kohaku actually knows this, and they were Stone World people. So basically, as I said earlier within some of my previous reviews, whenever we got first introduced to Kohaku, Senkun right off the bat knew that she was a younger generation of the Stone World people, meaning that she was born within the Stone World time, not during our actual time period. So basically, there was somebody else just like Senkun that was basically using a sort of kind of a revival fluid, or maybe some other natural occurrence happened that allowed a couple or a few of the people to get depetrified from stone. And basically, they got revived, they got revived, people live with each other, then they create a new generation of kids underneath them and another generation after that. So I'm not sure how many generations Kohaku is below the first settlers that actually got reintroduced into the stone world like Senku. But that is something interesting that she understood that Dragon Quest reference. So we are left with more questions, so to say, than with answers right now. And I feel like that's something that's going to be kind of reiterated on at a later point. We don't know exactly how many episodes down, but since we're in a huge village of people that have been revived, I'm pretty sure it may get hit, soon within the episodes. But that's just my overall thoughts on it. And was that something on the lines of what you were sort of kind of thinking as well, Johnny?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was thinking. Like, I don't know if you allow me to make a guess on it, but
Yeah, go ahead and knock yourself out.
But I probably guess that you noticed that on episode 7, Kohaku's sister was treated like a sort of priest or something in the village. So probably what happened is that their ancestors, like the other priests that came before her, probably told those stories from generation to generation. And that's probably how she got to hear about it. Because I can't believe that she was revived. She is a girl of the Stone Age, and I'm almost sure about that.
Yeah, that is interesting because there is a certain little element or certain little mystery to this Kohaku's sister, and yeah, I sort of kind of have a prediction, but sort of kind of not. I'm kind of seeing how these events play out though, but yeah, I might have my actual idea established by the time we see the next episode because it's not all there entirely right now, but if I see a little bit more, I might have a general idea or a good educated guess, or since we're talking about Dr. Stone, a good hypothesis as to what actually might have been going down with these people, because there's a certain mysterious element, and we're about to get brought to it here very soon within this villager arc though. But I believe that is all I have to say about the mystery of Kohaku and their village. Did you have anything else to add to this?
No, not really. I just would like to point out that when Suika entered the village to discover information, most of the villagers were actually talking about Senku trying to enter the village, and it was really hard for Suika to find information because the villagers are really worried about Senku entering the village. So it leaves me with a question that is, why don't they like outsiders in their village? Did something happen for them not to want anyone besides them to enter the village?
Now, part of my predictions on that is it could be based upon, the first person that was bringing back the people that were within the village. It could be some thoughts and ideas behind the first person that did it. Say like, well, since I'm in a brand new environment, I don't know who I can trust. So the people that I resurrect from being petrified are going to be safe because they're going to trust in me. However, there might be somebody out there, that may have different mindset or different ideas on how they should manage things. So maybe I should just, keep to myself and keep the people I bring back to life safe as well, because you never know what could be out there in this new stone world. Because there's a lot of mysteries. You don't know everything. There's no internet. You don't know half of what's going on in this world anymore, let alone your small little community that you established on this new stone world though. So that's my general idea though. But there could have been somebody else similar to how Senku, Taiju, and Kohaku, or not Kohaku, gosh darn it, Senku, Taiju, and Tsukasa, how they had their conflicts, and Tsukasa and Yuzura, all three of them were opposed to Tsukasa, and maybe something similar happened like that with this new settler that established this new village thing. But that's just my overall ideas on it. Do you have anything else to add to this before we're almost about to wrap this episode up?
It's just that we can't really make much assumptions about the village because we don't even know how much generations have passed since that unpetrified human or humans got and started building it.
And we do know that it took about, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, it was like 3,100-ish or a little more than 3,000 plus years. And that's how long it's been, according to Senkun's thinking and based upon him, counting all the seconds from his petrification. But go on.
Well, that's all I had to add, actually.
Alrighty. Well, I think we about hit every nook and cranny of this episode. While it wasn't super plot heavy, there were some, hidden plots in there where, like the Dragon Quest thing. If you think about it, or, you just think about previous episodes and applying them to this, we kind of just dove a little bit more into what could be the lore and what could be the mysterious elements that are going on in this episode. We kind of based on predictions that could be answered, and I'm not sure if we're going to get them all right or get them partially right or whatever though, but it'll be interesting to look back to this review and see how many things that were we possibly right or how many things we were wrong on for the mysteries of this of this new village that Senkun is basically living next to now, though. But that is all for our Dr. Stone episode 8 review of Stone Road. So if you really like this video, you can go ahead and hit that like button and hit that bell to stay up to date on all things anime that I'm reviewing for Dr. Stone. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me on my Twitter at Megazard_X. And you can also follow Johnny as well on Twitter. Go ahead and shoot them your information.
If you want to follow me on Twitter, just search for @JohnnyAC_, and you'll find me pretty easily.
All right. And I'd like to thank Johnny once again for being a part of this video, for this episode review of Dr. Stone. And it was actually a nice little experience being able to tag team this review up with somebody.
Well, it was really fun for me to share my opinions with you as well, Zard. So, yeah, I'm excited for the next episode. Let's see how it goes.
All right, so you can tune in next time for my Dr. Stone review of episode 9, Let There Be Light of Science. So until whatever video I make next, see ya.
何事だ。
なんかすっげえいい匂いしてきた。科学の飯ラーメンでこの村を制圧してやる。
悪役の顔だな、もはや。